Wednesday afternoon. Hi, hello, and how the heck are you? The tenor of this show shifted dramatically in the last hour or so. We were ready to just play Pitbull for a solid half an hour. Had the Kansas City Royals gotten the 9 outs they needed with a 5-2 lead in the 7th inning in Cleveland today, had they left Cleveland in sole possession of first place, this would be a very different radio show. If my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bicycle.
Would have been the worst day in Cleveland since the last time the lake caught on fire.
Alas, it is just a series win for the Royals, which, again, outstanding outcome. And I think it was Steve Stewart who said it on the post-game radio broadcast. If they'd lost the first game Monday and won the next 3, you'd be elated winning 3 out of 4. But it's a very different feeling given that sole possession of first place was 9 outs away for the Royals, and they could not finish the deal today, falling to the Guardians 7-5 and falling 1 game out of first in the Central Division.
Yeah, more than anything, it's the fact that they were the better team for 33 of 36 innings in this series. Because they were. Jake Eisenberg said that on the radio broadcast at one point. Right as things were starting to decline for Michael Wacha, he almost sounded kind of frustrated and made the comment, like, the Royals have been much better this entire series. They have been the better team. And it's true. Through 6 innings today, so 33 of the 36 innings for the weekend, the Royals were the better team. Unfortunately, they were not the better team for innings 7 through 9 today, and that is what the deciding factor is.
We're going to talk all about it, plus reactions to some more Chiefs transactions as they have their initial 53-man roster. We're going to make our college football playoff projections for 2024 today. We're going to talk to Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. We're going to crown a short week champion of What Is Wrong With You, talk about where the Chiefs come in the Ringers NFL defense rankings, and so much more on this edition of 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our live video stream on our Facebook page, WIBW News, and on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, and Spencer Dupuis with you to start things off. And yeah, let's get right into it. The Royals won last night to move into a tie for first place in a division that in late May, they were once 10 games out of first place. The Royals moved into a first place tie with their win last night. And through 6 innings this afternoon in Cleveland, held a 5-2 lead. And then there's a lot of ways to look at what happened next. And I initially was in agreement with YouTube commenter Lenny Dawson. And you too can comment if you are watching the show on YouTube or Facebook. Jump into the YouTube live chat. You can also hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. Lenny, I think, espouses the feelings of a lot of Royals fans. This loss is on the manager, he writes. 3 hits to open the 7th with no one warming up, then throwing in white flag, bringing Chris Stratton in the 8th inning. Yeah, I got my problems with that too. I
was reading Lenny's comment when it first came in. It was during the Royals post game, and got through. I thought he was going to say, and then you bring in Urseg cold, essentially, because I think it was 8 pitches plus a mound visit. That's how long that Urseg was actually warming up. It was not a long warm-up period. Instead, it was the Chris Stratton burn, and I thought, this is much funnier.
Yes.
And also more accurate.
We'll get to Chris Stratton in a second. So the Royals had to lean really heavily on their bullpen the last 2 days. Yeah. And we're going to talk about more the fact that, it's really unfortunate that the game turned the way it did, because really the story of this series, I think, was the Royals bullpen in a really good way. They got 50 of the 81 outs in the 3 wins in this series and allowed only 2 runs in that 16 2/3 innings.
Yeah, they were phenomenal. And it wasn't just, we are going to pitch Lucas Urseg until his arm falls off. I mean, it was a collection of guys who all came in, all did their job, and all did their jobs well.
And the Royals were really good value for those 3 wins. They were absolutely the better team. And crucially, winning 3 out of 4 in this series gives the Royals the tiebreaker with Cleveland. Again, they don't play games 163 or game 163s anymore. If you're tied, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head record. If the Royals and Guardians have the same record at the top of the Central Division at the end of the season, the Royals win the Central. They have already clinched the season series win, even with 3 more games to be played against the Guardians, and all 3 of those are at Kauffman Stadium to open up September. That would have been the story of this series. And really, we're going to talk about it later on in the show. We're seeing the bullpen get longer and more effective. And at some point, we're going to see the best version of this bullpen because we haven't seen it yet. I had an interaction with somebody on Twitter last night who pointed out we haven't seen the best of this Royals bullpen yet.
Yeah.
We haven't seen how good it can be. So today, though, let's game this out a little bit. Let's assume Matt Quatraro didn't want to use anybody for a 3rd consecutive day. A lot of managers are loath to do that. You don't want to use guys for a 3rd straight day
when you don't have an off day tomorrow, too.
Especially without an off day tomorrow. I'll get to that point in just a second. But managers don't like using guys 3 straight days. So Sam Long, John Schreiber, James MacArthur, you were probably not going to see unless there was an emergency today.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out. Carlos Hernandez threw 40-plus pitches yesterday, coming in relief of the injured Michael Lorenzen, who, by the way, in case you missed it, headed to the 15-day injured list today with a hamstring strain. Huge bummer. He was pitching well. Hopefully, Alec Marsh will be able to pick up his slack. I would imagine he'll be into the rotation starting on Sunday. But Carlos Hernandez threw 40 pitches in relief yesterday. We weren't going to see him. That's 4 of your 8 down. Daniel Lynch threw 3 innings 2 days ago, and even though it was only 34 pitches in those efficient 3 innings, he was probably not realistically available either. So that's 5 of your guys. So that leaves 4 relievers in the bullpen. Steven Cruz, who literally got called up today. That was going to be another not unless it's absolutely necessary sort of outing for Steven Cruz. Chris Stratton, who pitched last night and only threw like 12 pitches. Lucas Urseg, who hadn't thrown since the first game on Monday. And Chris Bubich. Now, once the situation in the 7th got to where it got, with Matt Quatraro trying to squeeze 1 more inning out of Michael Wacha, which in retrospect hindsight says that was the bad move. I thought it was the bad move at the time, but looking at just how limited the bullpen might have been, I understand that decision a little more.
Uh-huh.
Michael Wacha was at 91 pitches, facing the 9-hole hitter and a struggling Stephen Kwan. Go ahead, let him start the 7th. Worst case scenario, home run and back-to-back singles. So now you got a fire you got to put out in a 2-run game, and Matt Quatraro makes the right decision. He goes to Lucas Urseg. That's the right move in that spot. You go to your best guy. We have credited Matt Quatraro over and over again with being flexible with the usage of Lucas Urseg, not just holding him back for save situations, but being willing to call on him to put out the fire. And for the first time in his Royals career, Lucas Urseg didn't put out the fire. Not only did he allow inherited runners to score for the first time, he also allowed his own run to score for the first time. And boy, was it a frustrating way to see those runs come in. Josh Naylor's ball that fell for a single would have been an out if Kyle Isbell had A, gotten a better jump, and B, not been positioned somewhere inside the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame out in center field for that ball.
Mm-hmm.
Will Brennan somehow fisting a 100-mile-an-hour fastball over the infield. That was the velocity from the pitcher doing the work there. And Jhonkensy Noel muscled a hanging slider, which I thought was the one bad pitch Urseg threw. You can't throw it in a spot where he can get a bat to it and muscle it out to left. You just got to bury that and let the big kid swing and miss, and then you're out of that inning, and it's still at least a tied ball game. But
I do want to add real quick too on that first one, the one that got you went the entire circumference of the outfield, right? You had one to right, one to center, one to left. It was Steve Stewart on the radio broadcast who suggested that part of the problem, even with the bad positioning by Isbell, even with not getting a great jump, still thought he would have gotten to the ball. Might have taken a great effort, but would have gotten to the ball. But he said he thought there was a miscommunication between him and Adam Frazier, and even pointed out that is not new. Those two have not communicated well in the outfield during the course of the season, which would lead you to ask the question, what the hell is Adam Frazier doing in the outfield? But that is a different question for a different day.
Right.
So there's that. And the most frustrating part of any of that, to me anyway, Lucas Urseg had probably his worst control that he has had since coming over to the Royals in the trade from the A's.
He looked like a guy who had been called on to heat up a little fast and just wasn't all the way comfortable.
And even though he did not have good command in fact, had pretty poor command of the zone, all things considered, he still nearly got them out of it and only was done in by 3 little bloop duck snort hits. That's it. And that's the frustrating part of it, is the like, this is where you talk about process versus result. The result obviously didn't work out here, but it's process all the way down. Did Q get it right when he went to Urseg when he did, given what he had chosen before? Yes, absolutely. He's the right guy in that spot. He wasn't great today. It happens. He's a relief pitcher. It is what it is. But you want to do it, it's a chain reaction. You are trying to link thing to thing to thing. I think you got it wrong in the first place. I'm with you. I don't understand why Chris Bubich is in the doghouse on a milk carton. I don't know.
Chris Bubich is like the second or third best relief pitcher on this team. Mm-hmm. And that would have used to have been kind of a mean thing to say, given the state of the bullpen about a month and a half ago. But no, man, Bubich has been awesome. He didn't throw last night. He was available. That was the guy to go to in the 7th inning. You can get multiple innings out of Bubich. He's a converted starter. You had 2 lefties starting the 7th inning. One of them, Quan, Michael Wacha was going to see for the 4th time. Matt Contreras from the Tampa Bay organization, they are loath to let starters face a lineup the 3rd time through. Why would Wacha want to see that lineup? Why would you want Wacha to see that lineup a 4th time through? Bubich for the 7th was the decision. And then if you decide, okay, I got 2 guys I really trust. I got to get 9 outs. Bubich, however many he gets, Urseg to put out whatever fire he's got to put out, and then we'll ride Urseg to the end. That's managing to win. And I think that instead, as you pointed out, Spencer, he's got a fresh bullpen tomorrow, and that's great.
Yeah.
But when you manage for tomorrow, I've said it probably a dozen times, when you manage for tomorrow, you will lose today. And that is what has happened to the Royals. They managed for tomorrow. Matt Contreras managed to make sure his powder was dry for game 1 in Houston, and that's wonderful. But it cost him the game today because he was not as aggressive as he needed to be. I can't help but wonder if maybe he'd have been a little bit more urgent with his bullpen use had the Royals not already clinched a series win. If maybe there was a little bit in the back of his mind thinking, I'm satisfied with 3 out of 4 here. 3 out of 4 is a good outcome. And it is. It's an awesome outcome. The Royals are that much closer to the postseason. They're in a legit dogfight in the Central. They're ahead now by 2 games going into tonight's action. They're up 2 on Minnesota. And they've still got 3 at home against both of those teams, Cleveland and Minnesota, to start the month of September. They're in a great spot, and they really helped them out. This was a great, great 3 days of Kansas City Royals baseball, but it should have been even better. It could have been even better. And I don't think the proper urgency was on display for Matt Contreras, even acknowledging that his hands were tied. You go to the 8th. Where's Bubich there? Why is it Chris Stratton, the human white flag? It's a 1-run game. You've got the top of your order coming up. And runs are hard to come by against Emmanuel Clase, the best closer in baseball. You've got to keep it a 1-run game. What about Chris Stratton's everything would give you the sense that he could keep it a 1-run game? And shock of shocks, he didn't.
That's probably the thing I have a bigger problem with, even than not using Bubich in the 7th inning to start things off, because I don't want to be hypocritical with my take here, because as a consumer of the sport of baseball, I would, and granted, context is important here, but generally speaking, I would rather see my starter go into the 7th inning. Like I have complained and whined and moaned about that so many times that I almost feel guilty saying, no, don't put him out there, especially because how much of yesterday's show did we spend talking about how good Michael Wacha's been? A lot of time. And he has been really good. I think it's important to have the right, we've used this word a lot with Quachero recently, but the right feel for the situation and knowing, hey, this is not a great Michael Wacha game. Save him from himself before things fall apart. And they did end up falling apart today. They did not save him from himself. But I don't want to be hypocritical and say, no, take the starter out. Take the starter out. But I do have an issue going to Stratton because I don't get it. I do not. And like, you're never going to get an answer. And I would love for someone to ask, but you're never going to get a straight answer from a manager saying, hey, why did you go to this dude? Because he's been a bum. And you're just going to get, well, we trust him for X, Y, and Z fake nonsense reasons. That's just how managers talk and coaches in every professional sport, because they're not trying to piss off their own players generally. But he's been bad. It's not like, oh, he's having a bad stretch. He has been, on balance this season, bad. He has been a net negative for this Royals team as of late and over the course of the season. This is the exact kind of game where you don't want that guy in there. So I just want to know what Bubich did to not earn that trust, unless there is some super scary thing about his elbow that they're worried it's about to explode again, and they're trying to limit him as much as possible. In which case, you probably shouldn't have brought him back in the first place.
Or
I don't think that's what's happening, but that's
no.
like the only,
or
that's
they're
the only
just
thing I can think of.
Limiting his innings in general from his surgeries that he had.
I mean, they're treating it with kid gloves. I know that. And I hope it's injury related and not we don't trust him, because the numbers suggest that he is extremely trustworthy.
Yep.
And I would have liked to have seen him, especially in that spot. He had a day's rest. It's not like I'm calling on them to use him for a fourth straight day or even a third straight day. He's had a day's rest. I would have loved to have seen him in the seventh. I think the game turns out very differently if you give a reliever a clean seventh inning. I understand, though, I'm giving Contreras some grace and acknowledging that his hands were kind of tied because of the way the previous 2 days unfolded, with the doubleheader, with the really short outing by Lorenzen due to the injury on Tuesday night. I know he didn't have a full deck of cards to play with, but you also have to play your cards right.
I would like to address a texter from the Top City Metal Supply text line real quick.
Please do.
785 texter who, and I'm not sure what exactly they are referencing here. They just said Monday morning quarterback. I'm not sure exactly what point we made that is being addressed to. I mean, it's after a game and we are reacting to the game.
Yes,
but also
that's
like,
kind of the job. That's kind of sports radio, is to react to what's just happened.
And I appreciate you listening and texting in, but I will say this: like, okay, who should you have gone to start the seventh inning? Do you trust? Like, okay, sure. You want to split hairs over that? Fine. Here's what you cannot split hairs over. Chris Stratton is bad. 2024 Chris Stratton is bad. If Chris Stratton is your answer, you are asking a crappy question. That is not like using hindsight as 2020. Chris Stratton is bad. If that is your solution, you done goof. You messed up the scientific process somewhere. Go make a new hypothesis. You screwed it up.
Tough loss for the Royals, but again, great series. Great road series to go in against the team with the best road record, home record rather, in the American League. The Royals continue to play outstanding baseball away from Kauffman Stadium here in the second half. They are just one game back in the division. They've created some separation between them and Minnesota now, in addition to the separation they already have over teams like Boston and Seattle and Tampa Bay and the rest of that wild card field. And now they go to Houston for 4 tough ones starting tomorrow night. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back, talk a little Chiefs. We got more Royals to come on today's show. Lots more great stuff here at the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk coming to you following a Royals loss today, 7-5 to the Guardians. Royals drop a game out of first place in the Central Division. Let me tell you what. This show, we would have maybe just played Pitbull, like I said, for like 30 solid minutes coming on if the Royals had left Cleveland in sole possession of first place in the Central. We just would have played Pitbull and had a dance party in here. Instead, regrettably, we gotta do a little 5A Sports Talk throwback here. Spencer, can you play Third Eye Blind for me?
I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. You could cut ties with all the
It does feel a
lies
little
you
unfair to play this after falling one game out of first place on August 28th.
And a series win in 4 games.
It's true, but I'm telling you, just the way. Go ahead and take it down, Spence. The way it ended,
It sucked.
It would have been, honestly, it would have felt better if that had been the first game of the series and they'd responded to win the next 3.
You
get the same outcome, but like it just would have felt different.
Sorry to cut you off, Spencer. You were not here during the heyday of when we used to play that clip.
Yeah. Clearly.
Britt cut that and put it in our computer when I started, because every Monday we'd come in and usually it'd be to lead off the 3:00 hour because we would talk Chiefs and 2:00. And then 3:00, we do a lot of college football. We're like, oh, man, K-State, big win. Wow, what's Coach Snyder going to do with the quarterbacks? And then we would get to KU, and it's like, wow, Baylor won 62-7. Peyton Bender threw 9 interceptions. Brendan, your thoughts? And then I would say, today I thought about killing myself. And then Britt would play Jumper.
Yeah, that was how it was.
That was like every single Monday show for 3 years.
Shout out to anybody who's been rocking with us that long. We got Chiefs. We got Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com. We got What Is Wrong With You coming up in the 4:00 hour, 580 Sports Talk. Hang with us. Back after this. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk, our first full hour of the program today. We'll be with you until 6 o'clock tonight here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on the live video stream. Catch us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. Catch us on Facebook, WIBW News. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, Spencer Dupuis with you. Brendan's going to be ducking out a little early today.
That's right.
But for a good reason. You get your first Washburn Coaches Show of the season.
You are absolutely correct about that, Dan. 6 o'clock. It can be heard live over on our sister station, Country 1069, live from Skinny's Sports Bar and Grill at the corner of Huntoon and Gage. The 2024 debut of the Washburn Football Coaches Show. A full hour. Yours truly will be hanging out with Craig Schurig at Skinny's. Come on by. They got the daily specials in there. I don't know what it is for Wednesday night. In fact, usually I'm used to being there on Thursday nights.
Right.
But a Wednesday edition this week because we've got a Thursday night kickoff tomorrow against Emporia State. Looking forward to it. Hope to see you out there at Skinny's again at the corner of Huntoon and Gage, where every day is game day for the Washburn Football Coaches Show. And
remind the folks again, tomorrow night over on Classic Country 1069, the Washburn season opener against Emporia State.
Indeed, 7 o'clock kickoff, 6:30 pregame season opener for Washburn. Ichabod's trying to bounce back after a tough year a year ago, 2-9, all those injuries. The MIAA was insanely deep last season, should be again this year. But everyone's healthy for Washburn. Almost everybody on the whole roster healthy going into week 1. And for just if I'm not mistaken, fourth time ever, this is going to be a season opening Turnpike tussle. The 120th meeting between these two rivals, just about 50 minutes apart from each other. And it is just, I believe, the fourth ever to happen in the first week of the regular season. Last time it happened, none of us were alive, 1966.
Oh, wow. Yeah, none of us were alive.
And yeah, so this is this is the fifth all time. 66, 37, 03, and 01. That's 1903 and 1901 for those keeping track at home. Washburn won that first one 6-0. I bet you that game went crazy.
Oh, yeah. A lot of
pre-forward pass. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of 3 yards and a cloud of dust there. Again, it's the Washburn Football Coaches Show tonight out at Skinny Sports Bar and Grill. That'll start at 6 o'clock on our sister station, the home of the Ichabods, Classic Country 1069. Here on 580 Sports Talk this hour, we're going to crown a short week champion in What Is Wrong With You, so we can do our August semifinals tomorrow, and then our championship on Friday, crown a champion. What Is Wrong With You for the month of August. We'll also be joined by Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com for our Wildcat Wrap-Up. We do it every Wednesday with Fitz and get his thoughts on the season opener for the Kansas State Wildcats. They kick things off 6 p.m. Saturday night against the Skyhawks of Tennessee Martin. Coverage of that game will be heard on our sister station, the Big 94.5 Country, WIBW-FM. We got Royals baseball here on 580 on Saturday night. So if you're looking for Wyatt and Stan and Matt Walters and the K-State Sports Network broadcast crew, you'll be able to listen to the game Saturday night on our sister station, the Big 94.5 Country, 94.5 WIBW-FM. For that one, we'll preview it with Fitz later on this hour. But we begin this 4 o'clock hour with the thing we thought we were going to talk about yesterday, but then the Chiefs dragged their feet on unveiling their
what the hell, man?
Initial 53-man roster.
Our friend Matt Derrick was doing a live stream, and they had just gotten off their live stream because I tuned into their later live stream, and he's like, we just got off of it, and then 5 minutes later, I got the release. And then so they went back on at like 7:15.
Isn't that always the way? The Chiefs definitely dragged their feet on announcing their initial 53-man roster. Again, it's important to say initial because lots of changes can be made. And in fact, the Chiefs are already starting to make changes to their 53-man roster. We'll get to some of those moves, couple of moves today that the Chiefs have announced or at least have been reported that we will touch on. But these were the things that stood out to me immediately from the initial 53-man roster. Firstly, Chiefs are going with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Bold choice, but I like the upside with number 15.
Yes. Big arm. Goofy voice.
Lots of talent and
floppy hair.
Can't wait to see where he takes this franchise. I think he's really going places in his career. The former Texas Tech Red Raider.
He's got real competition though, because this is a quarterback room that's got multiple multi-game starters in it now.
Isn't it multiple? No, Carson didn't win a Super Bowl.
No. Well,
He's got a ring.
He's got a ring. He was hurt.
He played and won a majority of the games that season.
That's true.
Yeah.
So he was so good in 27.
He was going to win the MVP until his knee blew up.
Like, we forget that as a football watching public and as sports fans because our collective attention span is about 3.5 seconds. Carson Wentz in 2017 was not good. He was not great. He was awesome. You're 100% right. He was going to win MVP. And then he dove for the end zone, took a helmet to the knee, tore his ACL, and that changed his entire life.
It did.
Yeah, the whole course of his career.
Yes.
It really did. It really did. He is the backup. The practice squad will now include the Zap Man.
I'm a Zap Man.
Former New England Patriot Bailey Zappi has been added to the Chiefs practice squad. That was one of the moves they made today. I couldn't let it rest. We were talking about quarterbacks.
We need one of us to cover Billy Gunn's old theme. The old ass man theme. I'm a Zap Man.
I always think about the old Chappelle Show sketch when he was doing the prank show. You've been zapped. That's what I always think of with Bailey Zappi.
Hey, Conference USA's own.
You want to talk about awesome? Bailey Zappi in college was so good and so fun to watch.
Yes, I liked him as a late round flyer. I thought it was fun that he got to start NFL games.
Late round, he was more like a mid round. He got
was a
drafted in the fourth round.
Yeah.
Pick.
That's day 3. That's the late round. Come on, guys. This is day 3. Day 3 pick.
I mean, it's literally the middle
Arguing with me about semantics over Bailey Zappi. He stinks. That was the point I was just about to come around to before I was rudely interrupted. He's bad. He's bad. But if he's quarterback 3 instead of Chris Oladokun, like, okay, fine.
Yeah, no, Bailey Zappi as QB1, I don't like football. Bailey Zappi as QB3, ring season.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Anyhow, also offensively, only 3 running backs on the initial 53, but they're going to add one. We'll get there later on. The 7 wide receivers are who you would have expected. We were talking yesterday about the expected cuts of Kadarius Toney and Justin Ross. So McCole Hardman and Sky Moore make the team along with Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice. Those are your 7 wide receivers. 4 tight ends, including the recently acquired Peyton Hendershot to go along with the rookie Jared Wiley, Noah Gray, and, of course, Travis Kelce. 10 offensive linemen, and one of them, much to the delight of our own Marshall Thundering Herd insider, Spencer Dupuis, thank you for that, is Ethan Driscoll, the undrafted rookie. He makes the team at the expense of Lucas Niang, who I feel a little bad for. His career just never got going. He was a 2020 draft pick.
Third round pick. I
thought he was a good player at TCU.
Oh, he definitely was.
Opted out of his rookie year because of COVID. Then got hurt and missed all of 2021. So just never got any traction, never had an opportunity to really develop and get on the field and get on the practice field in those important first 2 years of his pro career. And you could tell he was just always kind of behind when it came to his developmental curve. So now the 2020 draft class for the Chiefs down to just 2 guys.
I'm honestly amazed that Niang made it this far. Because 2020, he opted out. Mm-hmm. So that, you're right, he truly never got started. Then he came in overweight, and the athleticism was kind of zapped.
But that's what happens when you opt out. Like, you're out of football completely for a year. So
yeah,
it was right. Like a gap year going into college.
No, you're entirely right. He had the hip injury as well, which I think really killed some of his athleticism. Good for him cashing checks for 3 years post-COVID, because I did not think he was going to get that
They
far.
might bring him back on the practice squad.
I wouldn't be shocked if they tried, to be honest with you, because it's nice to have a guy who's been in your system that you could elevate from the practice squad if need be. But Luke's Niang cut, which means, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Mike Dana, the only guys remaining from the 2020 Chiefs draft class.
Well, at least they have 2 players on their team. My favorite team has 0 from their 2020 draft class.
That's tough. Like, you're on second contracts with all those guys. Like, that's the class where they've just graduated out of their rookie deals essentially. So it's how many of those guys did you find were worthy of a long-term investment? And for the Chiefs, it was just Clyde Edwards-Helaire for 1 year, and we'll see if he makes it to week 1. And Mike Dana.
Actually, funny enough, my favorite team has 1. And granted, that 1 is also the highest paid player in NFL history.
Sure.
Jordan Love. But AJ Dillon went on IR and his Packers career is done. So, yeah. only one.
He might come back next year.
No. They already brought him back for like 850 plus tips this year. I don't think they'll bring him back.
Over on the defensive side of the ball, the cut that stood out to me the most for the Chiefs was Neil Farrell, who did not make the team at defensive tackle. What was the point of trading for Neil Farrell in the first place?
Brett Veach, if this is basketball, the Neil Farrell trade was the Chiefs up by like 24 points in a game, and yet Brett Veach brought the ball up court as like a power forward and then pulled up from 3 from 39 feet. Not your shot, not an efficient shot for anybody. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have put it up, but you thought, I'm untouchable. I'm going to launch it. And he airballed it, and that happens sometimes.
The analogy I was going to use is like a game where Bobby Witt Jr. goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. That's the Neil Farrell trade on Brett Veach's CV. Obviously, indisputably a great general manager, but this was a mistake. They gave away a 6th-round pick from this previous draft for Neil Farrell last year. He was a non-factor last year, didn't get any snaps, and this year couldn't make the team, couldn't make the 53-man roster. So, again, there's only but so much rending of garments you would ever do over losing a 6th-round pick or burning a 6th-round pick. But the Chiefs unquestionably did that with Neil Farrell. Even if he hangs around, even if they bring him back in the practice squad, he's still behind a guy like Matt Dickerson, who the Chiefs are definitely going to bring back.
Absolutely.
And there are likely going to be some practice squad elevations at defensive tackle throughout the season. Certainly week 1. I think Derek Notty's probably behind schedule. I would expect him even to be inactive for week 1.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me.
So, like, Matt Dickerson's ahead of Neil Farrell. And you know what Matt Dickerson cost? Nothing. Matt Dickerson cost his bus ticket, and Neil Farrell cost you a draft pick. So, I don't know. Bad process there, and Neil Farrell no longer a Chief. In the defensive secondary.
It did so much damage, though. How did last season end?
Yeah, it really was costly, clearly. They
wild.
only won 11 regular season games on their way to their 3rd Super Bowl in 5 years. In the defensive backfield, the only draft pick not to make the team from this previous draft, the 2024 class, Kamal Hadden out of Tennessee. Very raw. Chiefs still like his upside. Hopefully he's able to sneak through to the practice squad. He wasn't one of the first guys claimed today. Only guy the Chiefs had claimed was the linebacker Curtis Joseph. Is that his name?
No.
Curtis. I know who you're talking about.
It's not Curtis Joseph. Yeah,
Jacobs.
Curtis Jacobs. Curtis Joseph.
You were right with the J.
Curtis Joseph was a goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers when they beat the Avalanche in the 97 first round of the playoffs. Anyway, Curtis Jacobs was the only guy that got initially claimed off of waivers from the Chiefs at linebacker. So it looks like Hadden will get through to the practice squad, but that was noteworthy because he was the only draftee who did not make the team. Undrafted rookie defensive back Chris Roland Wallace did make the team. And you want to talk about coming completely off the radar. I don't think we spoke his name on this radio show.
Nope.
I don't think anybody spoke his name on this radio show until yesterday when we were talking about the report that he was going to make the 53. But it makes a lot of sense that he did make the roster when you consider the fact that he played his entire college career at corner, was moved to safety at camp for the Chiefs, and took to it so well that he made the team as the 5th defensive back, the 5th safety, effectively. We know what the Chiefs prioritize above anything else in the secondary, and that is versatility. And if a guy comes in and shows he can handle a position that he didn't play as a college player while still being able to go back to that position and perform, and he helps you on special teams, it's no surprise a guy like that makes the team.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's important to remember, and we brought this up last offseason or start of the last season, and I think it's important to remember again, fans and beat writers and media members always worry out loud about, oh man, you have to keep so-and-so on the roster because if you don't, they're going to end up on another team. Someone's going to claim this guy. There were roughly 1,184 players cut yesterday or over the previous couple of days. Every team had 90 guys or roughly 90 guys, and then you have to cut down to 53. So nearly 1,200 players were cut. Do you know how many were claimed on waivers?
I do not. I don't know the exact number, but I'm looking at the list of claims today, and it was not a long one.
Yeah, and the
2
first
pages.
The first team with the waiver claim did select somebody.
27 out of nearly 1,200 players ended up getting claimed on waivers. We worry way too much about guys being claimed by other teams.
Yeah.
In fact, it's kind of incredible that the Chiefs had a guy claimed. Statistically speaking, probably shouldn't happen. The Packers had 3 guys the Packers cut ended up getting claimed. That's preposterous. The Panthers, of those 27, they claimed 6 of them.
I think they signed to practice squad or signed outright or claimed 5 corners in 15 minutes.
4
corners in 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, 4 cornerbacks. They just said, screw it. We need help. They remember that video of Louis Armstrong stuck in help. That's Carolina. That's Dave Canales right now. Help.
The Chiefs did make a waiver claim, and it's a local kid, former Basler Linwood Bobcat, Eric Scott, who played his college football at Southern Miss.
Yeah.
Was a 6th-round pick of the Cowboys last year, claimed off of waivers today by the Chiefs. I wonder if this is to replace, because they gotta cut somebody to make room for Scott on the 53. I wonder if that might be Nick Jones, because Nick Jones, 7th-round pick last year, he made the team, but he did not have a great camp. And interestingly enough, Scott was taken with a Chiefs pick. The Cowboys moved up into the 6th round in 2023 by trading a 2024 5th to the Chiefs. And they selected Eric Scott with that pick.
That's pretty funny.
So a little bit of irony there. I don't know if it was a guy the Chiefs necessarily have always had their eye on, but clearly they were intrigued enough to snag him. And I do think that's probably for Nick Jones' cornerback 5.
I have another theory about who it could be. It could be for the undrafted free agent, Roland Wallace. Somebody knew about him maybe, and they thought that he was going to get claimed.
It could be. Could be
like
that
maybe,
they wanted to make sure they held him through the initial round
like
of waivers.
Maybe that when he was getting signed, he almost signed with another team, and the Chiefs signed him, and this team liked him a lot. The other team liked him a lot, so they thought that it was going to happen.
That's a good point. That's a very possible that it could be for Roland Wallace as well, but they will have to make one move there. The other move they're going to have to make, another cut, to make space for another running back, Samaje Perine. And look, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but Spencer, if you want to do it for me, you're welcome to.
Hey, yesterday on the show, we were going through players that got cut around the league, and we were talking about running backs because I brought up the point of I don't know how I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire anymore. And then you said Samaje Perine would be a great fit. And what did they do today?
So they signed Samaje Perine. Yeah. And it's an active roster addition. Perine was with the Broncos last year, but was cut by Denver. And the things he does well as a running back are the things that the Chiefs asked Jerick McKinnon to do the last few years. He catches passes and he blocks his tail off. Last year, Samaje Perine caught 50 passes out of the Denver backfield. In his career, he has 151 receptions over the course of what is now 7 seasons in the NFL. He is a pass-catching running back who is an outstanding pass protector. And I like what I've seen from Carson Steele. I don't think Perine is ahead of Carson Steele as far as being a ball carrier, but as far as being a trusted third down option to keep Patrick Mahomes upright, to flare out of the backfield and catch a pass, to do things in the screen game, I certainly like Samaje Perine in that role better than I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, I don't know if maybe Edwards-Helaire starts the season on IR because he hasn't been able to practice. He's been dealing with some things. That's a possibility. But look, for the course of 17 games plus the playoffs, Perine's a much better roster fit than Clyde Edwards-Helaire is. And if they're only going to keep 3 running backs, because I don't see them cutting another skill guy, I think they're going to go with their 4 tight ends. I think they're going to go with the 7 wide receivers. I have a lot of trouble seeing them cutting another skill guy. So either they go down to 9 offensive linemen, they're at 10, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire is either starting the season on the IR or cut. Because there is no way you can tell me that Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be getting snaps over Samaje Perine.
You could also put him on one of the other reserve lists. If what he's dealing with, they
non-football injury,
you could put him on the NFI list.
Yeah,
and he has to have a legitimate reason to be on it. But if it's, he's talked about dealing with PTSD this offseason and some of the other personal things, there's mental health concerns. You could, in theory, put him on NFI. I mean, you have to be on that for, is it 4 weeks? Do you know?
I think it's the same as PUP.
It might be the same as PUP.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think you can put someone on there at any point. So that is also an option.
So that's what the Chiefs' initial 53-man roster
Hold on.
looked like.
Can we just talk about the one player that it's in the headlines, but he kind of thought before when he was signed it was going to be a big thing. The Welsh rugby star Louis Rees-Zammit, he got cut and he got actually signed by Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, that's worth noting. The Louis Rees-Zammit dream is dead, at least in Kansas City. He was signed by Jacksonville, so he did not make it through waivers to the practice squad.
Spencer, you and I were talking yesterday because he didn't show up at practice. Then we found out during the day that he
confirmed it was an injury.
Yes, and you had suggested to me, maybe this is a phantom IR thing, which I think if the Chiefs wanted to keep him would have made some sense.
Yeah.
Work through the injury, practice with the team, be around, learn the playbook, learn football.
Get
whatever.
better to be hit with pads on and do the NFL thing.
If the Chiefs really wanted to keep him, I think that's what they would have done.
Yeah.
But the fact that they subjected him to free agency, that tells me they saw enough. And frankly, I did too.
Yeah.
He was really bad. And I don't blame him. He's never played before.
Yeah.
But
he was a guy that there was like I guess not a high ceiling, but like what could this guy do?
Yeah,
there
it was
intrigue.
Yeah.
Great intrigue, and
clearly the Chiefs had that intrigue answered to their satisfaction. Before we take a break, I want to remind you of Prairie Band Sportsbook's free NFL Survivor Pool. It is free to enter. You pick a winner a week. If you win the pool, for your investment of $0, you win $5,000. If you run the table, you can win up to $25,000 from Prairie Band Sportsbook in their free NFL Survivor Pool. Go to prairieband.chalklinegames.com/games/survivor and enter today. If you're watching on the YouTube, we're going to scroll that URL on the bottom of the screen during the commercial break so you can catch it as well. When we come back, it's What Is Wrong With You time from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. It is What Is Wrong With You time here on 580 Sports Talk. Going to crown our weekly champion today, monthly semifinals tomorrow, and the championship on Friday. 2 new stories trying to take down the roller coaster dad, the dad who abandoned his young children, 3 young children under the age of 8, so he could ride roller coasters at Cedar Point in Ohio. The 2 new stories, one of them, Brendan, your story today is actually a listener submission from the Top City Metal Supply text line.
Yes, thank you to texter with a 785 who sent this into us at 7:34 this morning. Hey, whenever you want to send them in, you are welcome to send in your What Is Wrong With You submissions. We're heading to Laredo, Texas, where a local high school football coach found himself in some hot water after a run-in with the law. Rolando Ramos, the quarterback's coach for Figueroa High School, the Toros, called the police back on August 19th, 9 days ago, to report that a prostitute had allegedly stolen $100 from him. That led to the question, what were you doing with that prostitute, sir? Authorities stated that Ramos was not merely a victim of theft, but he had been engaging in the act of soliciting prostitution. After confirming his claims and conducting a brief investigation, the officers arrested him. The incident has sparked quite a conversation in the Laredo community, highlighting the complicated lives of those involved in high school sports. That is quite a sentence from HereRockHill.com.
Man, like I don't like the vibe of this website. The main graphic is just AI sludge. It's a helmet with American school football written on the side.
Yeah, it's
and
not
a
great.
jersey on the back in which it appears the team name is Hot Sheets.
There's also a graphic at the bottom that has 2 basketballs, one of which has Saturn's rings around it, and the graphic just says, "Here, sports." So, yeah, I don't feel great about this website, but, yeah.
I think it's a real story.
I believe the story is indeed real.
The Figueroa High School Toros are real.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. Yeah, it is a real story.
Yeah.
We have the Laredo Morning Times reported on it, so it is a real story.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Said, hey, give me my $100 back. And they said, hey, why did you give a prostitute money in the first place? Oh.
For my story today, we're going to Escambia County, Florida. We meet 56-year-old Grace Ann Sharp, who was arrested for walking around outside naked during a neighbor's birthday party.
I thought this was America.
The incident happened Sunday in Pensacola as her neighbor was having a birthday party. The report stated the neighbor told deputies around 7 p.m. Sharp walked up naked to the chain link fence that separates the properties, rubbed the item on her private areas.
Courtney Love?
The neighbor made the children go inside her home. According to the report, when the neighbor told Sharp she was naked, Sharp said, "I know, it's hot outside."
Wow, relatable.
Sharp eventually went back inside her home when deputies were called. She remains in jail on $2,500 bond. That's the story. She's walking around naked on a Sunday afternoon.
Wow. I mean, she must have been under the influence of something,
right? Like, she had to be.
Yeah.
It's not in the story.
It's not in the story. Yeah, that's not part of the details, but yeah, wild story. So I'm going to give the football coach the nod here.
Yes,
you can't call the police and say, this prostitute stole money from me. Nah, man, you got charged after the game, brother. You got to take that L.
Yeah, man, that money ain't coming back. That's like gambling in an offshore book. You just know you might not get that money back.
You're never seeing it again. Does that beat Roller Coaster Dad?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. I'm gonna go ahead and get a more credible link for it. And
please.
The creepy QB coach.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's the best I got.
I like that.
That is that's the winner.
Jeffrey on YouTube just went very blunt here. Horny coach.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly.
I like alliteration, so we're gonna stick with mine. But
that's fine by me.
Yeah, the creepy QB coach is our weekly champion.
Passing Coach Pimp. That was from Vance.
I don't think he had that kind of relationship with him. You know what? Let's go to break. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. We are joined in the Flaming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by the great Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. This is the Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Wednesday at this time. Fitz, we made it to game week. Are you ready for some football?
I'm so ready. Except there's one problem. I was just outside with the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It's sticky. It
is sticky. We know you're not a fan of sticky. We have been reminding people of that for several years now, that you're not a big fan of sticky.
Yes, indeed. Just locked up in my studio working on stuff. So much cool cooking at Go Power Cat.
Awesome. And we encourage folks, if you are not a subscriber to the VIP portion of GoPowerCat.com and the rest of the 24/7 Sports Network, to get subscribed so you can be in the know about all things K-State. All right, Fitz, we're going into Saturday. UT Martin is the opponent, and I'm always fascinated by the FCS games for K-State for two reasons. Number one is they seem to get good, solid programs to come and play them, good, solid FCS programs to come and play them. UT Martin's working on a streak of 3 straight conference championships. They were a top 25 team in FCS last year. The other thing that fascinates me is, that a Chris Kleiman coach team is never going to take an FCS team for granted. So where do you sense the approach is for this team? What do you hope? What do you think they hope that they're going to get out of game one against the Skyhawks on Saturday?
Well, probably, their biggest thing is to play a clean game, watch their turnovers, don't have a bunch of penalties. But if you get away from them, which, might happen in the first half, this is a pretty good UT Martin team. We'll see. They're going to be probably pretty vanilla. They won't show a lot. I think it'll look a lot like what they did in the bowl game, to be honest. But you want to get a bunch of players in, too. They've just got so many young guys who are ready to play, need to get on the field, need to get some playing time, and need to be exposed to 50,000 fans and a different opponent than their own team, and try to get them up to speed, because you go to Tulane next weekend and then you turn around and play Arizona. It's a non-conference game, but it's the first of 10 straight games against Big 12 opponents.
This will be the first career start at quarterback for Avery Johnson at home. First time to lead the offense out on the field at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Obviously, the reception is going to be tremendous from the crowd that's there on Saturday night. And Chris Kleiman sure doesn't think there are going to be any nerves for him. What do you expect to see from Avery, though, in that first career start at home?
Oh, I think he'll just be Avery. He's one of those guys that doesn't get fazed by much. He doesn't get knocked off track. And when Chris Kleiman was asked about it at Monday's press conference, he just was almost indignant. No, I don't worry about him. I don't. He's just a cool hand, and I think we'll see that again. Doesn't mean he's going to play a perfect game. He's a young kid. He's going to make some mistakes. But as we saw in the bowl game, when a play needed to be made, Avery would make a play, and they'd open it up enough to let him do it. So I think, again, we're going to see a lot of what we saw in the bowl game, him throwing the ball away, not taking a bunch of chances, not running unless it's absolutely needed. But I don't think emotionally it's going to bother him one bit. I know he's excited, but I think once the game starts, he's going to be fine.
Outside of Avery Johnson, which player are you most excited to see in action in the season opener? And it can be for any variety of reasons, Fitz. I just want to know which player that you're most excited to watch in game one.
Well, I'll set aside Avery. And I'm not going to pick one player. I'm going to pick the 3 redshirt freshman defensive ends, because they all have a little bit different roles, a little bit different skill set. And I want to see how they plug into the defensive line and where they fit. And, of course, Dylan Edwards will be there, too, because I want to see what he's about. But, for the most part, I think everyone that is going to that game will have their eyes on Avery Johnson, just to see what he looks like in the home purples, playing against a FCS team, but still playing under the lights. There are a lot of things that need to be answered along the offensive line and the defensive line, and seeing how good these young DNs are, how dynamic they are, I think it's a big part of it.
Tim Fitzgerald is our guest. He is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com, the best source for all things K-State sports. Make sure you check him out on YouTube as well at the GoPowerCat channel, and follow Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. He joins us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline for our Wildcat Wrap-Up. let's talk a little bit about that offensive line, because you had multiple multi-year starters, Cooper Beebe, KT Leviston, et cetera, who graduated, who moved on to the NFL this offseason. What are some of those big questions you have about this offensive line group heading into 2024?
Just being a cohesive group. They actually, because of the injuries, returned 3 starters. It's something you don't see very often, that you lose starters and return just as many as you lost, but they do. I think Carver Willis came a long ways at right tackle, but who will be his left tackle? His right guard. Potier is listed as an OR with Andrew Langang, which is very interesting. Sam Hecht is a new guy playing center, former walk-on. You got Hadley Panzer moving into Cooper Beebe's spot. I don't mean to be mean to Hadley, but he's not going to be as good as the previous guy. And of course, left tackle Easton Kilty comes in from North Dakota, huge kid with an ability to play at this level. So he's not a K-State starter, but he's used to starting football games. So they got experience. Now they need to learn how to dance together and put it together on game days.
We've talked so much about this tight end room and Garrett Oakley, specifically at the top of it, and how big of a fan of his you are, and the expectation that he's going to have a big year. What do you think of the blocking ability of this tight end room? Because Ben Sinnott, while a great offensive, pass catcher and weapon, and he's now rightfully in the NFL as well, also was more than willing to mix it up. What do you think of the physicality and the blocking prowess of this new group of tight ends?
Yeah, we'll find out. There's a lot of things Ben Sinnott did. He had that ability to block at the point of attack. He had the ability to line up at fullback, and he had the ability to split wide and essentially play a receiver and challenge the defensive backfield. Will they do that with Oakley? Will they just literally have a committee handling it? Because we think we're going to see 3 tight ends, because they're raving about Brandon Lofton, the sophomore. So they got Oakley as a sophomore, and then, of course, Will Swanson, the experienced guy, the senior, just a steady guy that gets it done. I think he'll be on the field a lot because he's very reliable.
The defense. I know that I've asked you, Fitz, many times during the course of this offseason about the defensive backs in particular, because I think there is reason to be excited. I think there is also reason to be concerned with some of these groups, specifically the cornerbacks. Keenan Garber, it feels like he has been at K-State since 2008. I feel like he's the first player I ever remember being recruited to K-State and thinking, wow, how did KU not get this Lawrence kid? That has also happened many other times. But beside the point, do you think he's got the juice as a player and as a leader to kind of be the settling presence in that cornerbacks and defensive backs room, being the elder statesman of that group now?
I sit here and wonder what he would have been if he hadn't messed around at receiver and struggled there for years and had made this conversion before the Sugar Bowl in 2022. And, they just kind of threw him into the water against Alabama, just Alabama, and he did okay. Didn't do everything well, but he got by. And he really grew up last year. You just can't beat his speed. And, with him and everyone else at corner, Jacob Parrish can flat out run. They've got a great pair of frontline corners, but what do they got behind them? That's going to be some young guys along with Justice James, who is in his second year at K-State after coming in from junior college. Is apparently really hit stride now, but they're going to need to develop some young guys back there. There's no doubt about it, because you can't live off these forever. And I hate to tell you this, Keenan Garber will be done after this season. There's not another season because he's got to raise his children and get a job. Not that he has children, but he is 35 years old.
I mean, might need to file for AARP at this point, Fitz.
Yeah, it catches up to you fast, man. You're just out there having a beer with your buddies one day. You're in your 20s, and the next thing you know, AARP wants you to join, and you're like, what happened? I know. Just trust me.
We're joined by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. And Tim, to flip here to the hardwood, it was reported the other day by On3 Sports that 5-star, the number 1 ranked player in the class of 2025, AJ Dibansa, will be on campus this weekend at Kansas State. How big of a get, and where is Kansas State in possibly landing him?
That's a question I can't answer. This is kind of new territory for K-State, at least in recent history, to have this level of recruit on campus. And in the past, not having the fresh tradition that a lot of programs have and the big names. And big victories has been a challenge. But now NIL kind of evens that out. We saw it happen with recruiting in the transfer portal last year, and now I'm not going to write them off because there's a group of K-State alumni who are making sure Jerome Tang has what he needs to get players that he thinks will fit into his system. And of course, this kid, he's elite. He's got everyone after him. He's limited his list, but K-State and KU made that cut, and it's going to be very interesting.
Wrapping things up with Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Wildcat Wrap-Up. All right, Fitz, as the season kicks off on Saturday, I want to get a feel for what you believe to be the floor and the ceiling for win total for this Kansas State team. And if they hit their floor, why? If they hit their ceiling, why?
I'm going to do this. Avery Johnson stays mostly healthy, if not entirely healthy, because if he goes down, I can't. I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe
Sure.
It's 6 wins. I'm not sure, but I think their floor might be 8, and their ceiling, of course, is 12 in the regular season. I think they have the ability, they have the players, and the schedule, to be blunt, to run the table. We're doing power rankings for the Big 12 every Tuesday on our Big 12 Insider Show with Big B, and it's his list of the top 16, 1 through 16. K-State plays 4 of the bottom 5 in his list right now. And I think that's just a great opportunity to have a really good season and, get some momentum for next year, which I think will be possibly even better season. But yeah, I think this team's good enough to run the table. You just got to line them up and take care of business every week.
Tim Fitzgerald covers the Kansas State Wildcats for GoPowerCat.com, the publisher of GoPowerCat.com. You can check out he and his staff's outstanding work there. Again, subscribe to the 24/7 Sports Network. Become a VIP today. Check out Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Can't wait to see the content they churn out surrounding Week 1 as, again, K-State takes on UT Martin on Saturday night at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Fitz, it's always a pleasure. We'll see you at the Bill on Saturday.
Thank you, boys. Our pregame podcast drops at midnight, both on video and audio.
Hell yeah.
Not to be missed. Thank you again, Fitz, for the time. That is Tim Fitzgerald. We'll take a break, come back, and wrap up this hour 5A Sports Talk after this. Quick round of one got to go before we wrap up the 4 o'clock hour here on 580 Sports Talk. Our thanks again to Tim Fitzgerald for joining us. All right, going to give you 4 names from the Chiefs practice squad, which they just announced. We'll give it to you in full in our headline segment to lead off the 5 o'clock hour. 4 names from this practice squad. You have to give me a player that will. It's kind of inverse one got to go here. Give me a player who you think will make an impact for the Chiefs, however small, but an impact.
Positive impact?
Yes, okay. For the Chiefs in 2024. Justin Ross, Montrell Washington, Matt Dickerson, Deion Bush.
Deion Bush.
Yeah, I think if I was ranking them, I'd go Bush, Dickerson, and then Washington. And was it Ross, the first one you mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are done with Ross. I can't believe they brought him back to the practice squad, honestly. We know they like Dickerson. We know Andy Reid likes Matt Dickerson, so does Spags. But Deion Bush, I think, is trusted. And that sounds weird to say for a guy who got cut and put on the practice squad as a veteran. But I do think they trust him specifically on special teams. So that would be mine. All right, one's got to go. Chiefs position groups. Defensive backs, linebackers, defensive line. One of those position groups gets wiped off the roster. You cannot bring back any of the players in that group. They are gone. You can rebuild it with other players from around the league. Which one would you take out?
Linebacker, because it's the only group without an all-pro.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, it's simple as that. Like, elite talent wins you championships, and there's an all-pro defensive tackle, and there's an all-pro cornerback.
Yeah, I think defensive backs is the easiest save there. I think defensive line, like, outside of Chris Jones, even though I like Karlaftis a lot, I would have no problem replacing a lot of those dudes, but you're not getting rid of Chris Jones. You just can't. So, yeah, that probably comes down to linebacker. And that being said, how many teams legitimately go 3 linebackers deep?
It's not many.
Some rotate a lot, though. So that's
rotate, but, like, how many of those guys are good?
Yeah, I don't necessarily mean, like, how many teams play 3. I mean, how many teams have a playable 3? And the Chiefs might be the only one.
It is not a real long list for sure. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, our sports headlines and some more Royals thoughts after they lost earlier today. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final hour of 580 Sports Talk for this Wednesday. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate you taking some time from your day and spending it with us here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on the live YouTube stream. You can catch us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. And you can also watch us on Facebook. WIBW News is the Facebook page. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis with you. It's a two-man game the rest of the way. Brendan Dworzinski is on his way to Skinny Sports Bar and Grill, where he will host the first edition this season of the Washburn Football Coaches Show. Brendan will be live with Craig Schurig as they preview the season for the Ichabods and preview the Turnpike Tussle tomorrow night, the first game of the season for Washburn football in Emporia at Welch Stadium against the Hornets. That's a 7 o'clock kickoff, pregame 6:30 tomorrow night on your home for the Ichabods, our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. 106.9 is where you can hear the coaches show tonight from 6 to 7. So that's where Brendan is the rest of the way. It's Spencer and I carrying you for this final hour of the show. On this final hour, we're going to get back to the Royals, who lost earlier today. In case you missed it, 7-5, the final score. Royals had a 5-2 lead in the seventh inning, were 9 outs from a sweep and sole possession of first place, but couldn't get it to the house. Have to settle for what is an outstanding series win, taking 3 out of 4 from the first place Guardians. We'll talk a little more Royals. Also, The Ringer and Sheil Kapadia released his rankings of the top defenses in the NFL. We talked about his offense rankings last week. Today, we'll talk about his defense ranking, where the Chiefs rank might be lower than you expect. We'll discuss what Sheil Kapadia thinks a little bit later on in the show. We've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, of course. Couple of notes to get to before we really jump into the 580 Sports Talk headlines. First, hope you've been following along with the Pigskin and Hoops previews that have been coming out daily during the weekdays on our website, 580WIBW.com. Today was 3 Shawnee County teams whose previews we released: the Seaman Vikings, the Shawnee Heights Thunderbirds, and the Silver Lake Eagles. Their previews are all up. We've got 5 more previews left to publish over the next 2 days. Tomorrow we'll have Topeka High, Topeka West, and Valley Falls. Then we'll publish Washburn Rural and Wabaunsee to round out the previews on Friday. And then all the previews for this football season will be up at 580WIBW.com. There's a link right on the front of the page to the Pigskin and Hoops preview. It's a welcome letter from yours truly and a table of contents. Once you're there, you can go and check out all of the team previews, all 28 schools that we have previewed. We've got 23 of the previews up so far. Also, if you're following us on Facebook, WIBW News, or if you're following us on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk, you can see that we are posting the links to those previews there each day as well. So we hope you're enjoying the online-only edition this year of the Pigskin and Hoops magazine and getting excited for high school football with all of these previews. Again, our high school football coverage gets started next Friday night over on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. We'll have the War on 24 to start the season. What a way to kick off 2024 and our high school football coverage than the War on 24. What better way to do it?
Is that a better? There's no better way to baptize me into Kansas high school football.
That is a fact. That is a fact. It'll be one of the best atmospheres we encounter all year out at CJ Hamilton Field at Silver Lake. Silver Lake and Rossville is the game we will have for you. That is Friday night. The Lewis Toyota Game of the Week series begins next Friday night. And again, that'll be over on Classic Country 106.9. Also, want to call your attention to our friends at Prairie Band Sportsbook's free NFL Survivor Pool, because you can win free money. And we like free money, and we bet you like free money too. And we want to give you a chance to win some free money from Prairie Band Sportsbook. Enter their NFL Survivor Pool before the start of the regular season next Thursday, September 5th. If you win the Survivor Pool, you win $5,000. If you are perfect, if you have a perfect record all the way through the Survivor Pool, go 20-0, you win up to $25,000.
That's free money right there, folks.
Free money. What's better than that? Free money from our friends at Prairie Band Sportsbook. Sign up today. Go to the link, prairieband.chalklinegames.com/games/ Survivor. That's prairieband.chalklinegames, like the line, the first and the third base line on a baseball field. chalklinegames.com/games/survivor. And if you're watching along on the YouTube, we've been scrolling the link across the bottom of the screen during commercials, so you can catch it there as well. Join the free NFL Survivor pool from Prairie Band Sportsbook for your chance to win up to $25,000.
I have an easier way for people to get to it.
What's
Go
that?
to the Prairie Band Sportsbook social media accounts.
Yes, that's true. You follow them
And they're right on there.
Follow them on Twitter at Bet Prairie Band. And yeah, you can follow the link there as well. You should follow them on Twitter, Bet Prairie Band. And you can find the link there as well. Lots of ways to get to it, but we encourage you again to play because it's free and you could win up to $25,000. What's better? What would be a better way to enjoy the football season than winning $25,000?
You imagine telling your friends and family at the end of the year, yeah, I got every single game correct that I picked.
I
and
aced the Survivor pool and it paid out $25,000.
I am a ball knower and I've got $25,000 to prove it.
Ball knower supreme. That would
Certified.
give you bragging rights for days if you win the Survivor pool. Again, it's prairieband.chalklinegames.com/games/survivor. All right, let's get into those 580 Sports Talk headlines, shall we? And let's begin with the Chiefs announcing their practice squad and other roster moves. This is within the last hour. The Chiefs, like every team, has 17 slots on their practice squad. One of those slots being reserved for an international pathway player. So the Chiefs have signed 15 players plus one international player to their practice squad, which means they have a slot available. The players who are on the practice squad in alphabetical order: running back Amani Bailey, linebacker Swayze Bozeman, safety Dion Bush, linebacker Cole Christensen, tight end Baylor Cupp, defensive tackle Matt Dickerson, defensive tackle Neil Farrell, running back Keontae Ingram, defensive end Truman Jones, defensive tackle Fabian Lovett, offensive tackle Lucas Niang, wide receiver Nico Remigio, wide receiver Justin Ross, cornerback Keith Taylor, and wide receiver Montrell Washington.
One name that's not on there, but he is anticipated to join the practice squad. We talked about this earlier. Bailey Zappi, I believe he has to go through a physical.
Yeah, so
because he wasn't with the team previously.
It's been reported that the Chiefs are going to sign Bailey Zappi. There's no quarterback on the practice squad. The Chiefs are going to carry two on the active roster. Imagine they would have a third, and it sounds like it's going to be Zappi, who's started 8 games for the Patriots over the last 2 seasons. That is what is being reported, but it is not yet official from the Chiefs. So there is a spot that is left open on this practice squad. It's for a quarterback. There's no doubt about that. There's not a quarterback on this list, and multiple reports suggesting that will be Bailey Zappi. The international player that has been added is offensive tackle Chukwuemeka Godric, who was also the international pathway player last year. Maybe you're wondering, hey, what happened to Lewis Rees-Zammit, the Welsh rugby star who the Chiefs signed this offseason? He did not make the practice squad because Jacksonville claimed him off of waivers. So Rees-Zammit's NFL journey will continue in Jacksonville.
Did you see what Matt Derrick posted on Twitter?
I did not.
He said there's nothing different that the Chiefs would have sold to him on their practice squad, except for the Jaguars play games in the UK.
This is true. Yeah, he just tweeted that. Yeah, they do play twice in over in London. I think they're both in London. Anyhow, lost my train of thought. The other transactions for the Chiefs, they claimed Eric Scott off of waivers from Dallas today, defensive back from Southern Mississippi, local kid, Baser Linwood Bobcat, and one-year veteran Eric Scott has been claimed. To put him on the 53-man roster, the Chiefs waived Nick Jones, their 7th-round pick from 2023, also defensive back out of Ball State. That was what we speculated when we were discussing this in the 4 o'clock hour, and it's come to fruition. So Eric Scott is on the 53-man roster. Nick Jones has been waived. There have also been multiple reports, and we discussed it earlier, that the Chiefs are going to sign running back Samaje Perine to the active roster. But since that has not happened yet, there is no corresponding move to tell you about. Those are the transactions that we either know are official from the Chiefs or are likely to become official either tomorrow or in the upcoming days. and the practice squad is set. The name that is not on the practice squad that jumps out to me is Deneric Prince. Man, what a fall. I don't want to say a fall from grace. That's a bit dramatic.
He wasn't an active roster guy that much. But that'd be a fall from grace.
Yes. But Deneric Prince was a guy who got a lot of buzz as an undrafted free agent out of Tulsa, had a really good start to training camp last season, and it felt like he was going to make the team. And then he kind of hit a wall. He didn't play well in the preseason games. He ended up sticking with the practice squad. This year, it was sort of assumed that he had a chance to make the 53-man roster. Not only does he not make the 53, passed up by the likes of Carson Steele, the Chiefs decided they'd rather keep rookie Amani Bailey and veteran Keontae Ingram instead of Deneric Prince. So Deneric Prince right now a free agent hit. I don't believe that he has been claimed by another team. And so he is not on the Chiefs practice squad. But bunch of the other names are recognizable. Lucas Niang, former third-round pick, didn't make the 53, got through the practice squad. Deion Bush has appeared in games for the Chiefs. Matt Dickerson and Neil Farrell obviously have as well. Justin Ross and Montrell Washington as well. Keith Taylor, the cornerback, had a really good camp, just kind of victim of numbers. Same with Nico Remigio. So that's where the practice squad stands for now. But again, things are very fluid as far as that goes. And we'll be watching the transaction wire in the next couple of days. Spencer, what is your first headline?
My first headline, it's not necessarily a headline because we've talked about it before, but we did hear from, so last night was the Kansas City Sports Awards in KC Mo. And I'm not too sure exactly what Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark received there. I don't know if it was like some kind of award for them continuing or being recognized for them continuing to have the Big 12 tournament there and their commitment to stay in KC or whatever the likes. But Harold Kuntz of Fox 4 KC caught up with him yesterday, as either before or after, and he asked him the big expansion question that's been going around lately. And I have the audio pulled up right here. It's just about a 30-second clip where he talks about the potential more expansion. The UConn's been named. He doesn't name UConn, but UConn's been named as the next potential team to move to the Big 12. Oh.
Conference, right?
Here we go. So that's the first time we've heard the commissioner talk this time around about expansion. And to me, that seems like he's serious about it. He's got to get the rest of the teams in on it, because it appears they're not in on it from the latest reporting.
Yeah, Matt Norlander and Dennis Dodd were both doing some reporting for CBS Sports, and the reports are that this is a hard sell the Big 12 leadership is putting on their member schools regarding UConn. And what both Norlander and Dodd reported are that 6 schools are in favor right now. There are at least 2 schools that are against. Again, it has to be a 3/4 vote. So 4 no votes, you could survive. Yeah. And but if you get up to 5 no votes, then the membership would veto the idea of adding UConn. The other thing that's interesting here, Fox is also against the move, according to sources. So now you have the networks on opposite sides of this, because there was initial reporting, I think it was Andrew Marchand's reporting for The Athletic, that said ESPN is pushing for this because, of course, ESPN is in Connecticut and 40 miles from UConn's campus and stores. And there's a long-standing relationship between the Big 12 and ESPN, including Big 12 now on ESPN+. But Fox is also a big player when it comes to broadcasting the Big 12, and Fox isn't super keen on adding a football program that doesn't bring anything to the table. So, and that's putting it nicely regarding UConn football. So still some convincing that Brett Yormark and company have to do, is what it sounds like, not just with the member schools, but with some of the media partners as well regarding the addition of UConn to the league. But that is where things currently stand. Next headline for me, College football's spring transfer period is in danger of being eliminated. Both the FBS and FCS oversight committees have recommended that the sport move to a single off-season transfer window. Under the proposal, the 30-day transfer window in December would become the lone opportunity for players at that level to enter their name in a transfer portal and seek a new school. For the past 2 years, the portal has also opened for a 15-day window in April. The Division I Council will meet in October to determine whether it will adopt the proposal, and if approved, the change would take effect for this coming year. Now, the transfer window opens the Monday after conference title games and extends through January 7th. So what you're essentially saying is you're going to be asking players who are going into bowl season or going into the playoff with their teams to decide right then and there if that's where they want to be moving forward. You're not going to give them the spring option. You're not going to give them the option to see how the rest of the transfer portal plays out. So theoretically, a coach could recruit over a player in the transfer portal, and then that player wouldn't have recourse in the spring to try and leave. There were 900 FBS scholarship players entering the portal in the month of April after the NCAA was forced to drop their one-time transfer restrictions. There would be a 5-day exemption for teams competing in the playoff or players whose teams are in the playoff. They would get a 5-day exemption to enter the portal after their season has concluded. Players also have a 30-day window in the event of a coaching change. But this is the proposal from the FBS and the FCS to close the spring transfer window. To me, this is a skill issue for lazy coaches who don't want to spend that time recruiting. You want to do less recruiting. You want to do less roster building. You want to take a vacation. I understand it's a grind, but you're making millions of dollars. This is what you signed up to do. And the players have more power now. And this is a desperate grab to try and get some of that power back from the players. And I don't think it should work. I think this is a weak move by the FBS and FCS schools. And I hope this doesn't pass, but I have a feeling it will.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens. That little window is not great. I got a few NFL tidbits.
Yeah, let's go around the NFL real quick.
Yeah, so the Cowboys have finally made a signing to somebody outside of the organization that people know his name, the guy's name. After bringing in Dalvin Cook for a workout, they signed the veteran running back. He joins Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn of K-State legacy there.
Yeah, Deuce made the 53.
But I don't think the signing's official yet.
It's not official yet.
Deuce,
it's like a lot of the signings right now.
So Deuce may not make it. He may be a practice squad guy for them.
If they cut Deuce Vaughn for Dalvin Cook in the year 2024, they're dumber than dog dirt. They are absolutely moronic.
Imagine in 2019 saying Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott in the same backfield.
Oh, it would have been sick.
Yeah.
It would have been awesome. It would have been the best backfield in the NFL in 2019. Here's the problem with that. It's 2024. Thank you, Spencer.
Yeah. Also, back in 2019, Russell Wilson was a great quarterback. He is now the starting quarterback for the Steelers. How long will they take to throw in Justin Fields into the mix and then see how bad he is and then go back to Russell Wilson?
That's an interesting question because I think there are a lot of franchises that would probably yank their quarterbacks around and just not really be satisfied with what they've got. Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin, they don't seem like the kind of organization that's going to bounce around and be like, we don't like Russell Wilson, we're going to make a change. And then 2 weeks later when they play Justin Fields and discover, oh, wait, he's Justin Fields, we got to go back to Russell Wilson. We're leaking oil here. I think they value stability, and I think they understand that like what Justin Fields is who Justin Fields is. And at the very least, Russell Wilson is a much more known commodity and a much more positive commodity than Justin Fields is. Like, you say what you want about Russell Wilson, and a lot of the criticism is fair and earned at this point. His last 2 years in Denver were miserable. But if you're going to tell me that you think Justin Fields is better than Russell Wilson, I'm just going to conclude you've never watched football in your life.
Exactly.
I don't see it.
A couple other more tidbits here about players that are holding out or holding in. Jamar Chase showed up late and in street clothes to practice today after head coach Zach Taylor insisted he would continue to practice with the team. Also seeing this from Spot Track on Twitter @SpotTrack, co-founder and editor of the site, Michael Giannitti. He said the Brandon Ayuk contract situation continues to dominate the news cycle, but the 49ers are probably much more concerned about their Trent Williams contract problem, who has yet to report to the team. He's already shown he'll miss games. In the past, he forfeited $5 million when he missed 8 games in Washington in 2019.
So Zach Taylor said yesterday that Jamar Chase was going to practice with the team every day moving forward. And he did. He practiced yesterday. Today, he was 13 minutes late for practice, and he showed up in street clothes. And Zach Taylor had to tell the media, quote, "I think I probably put my foot in my mouth speaking too quickly. Again, this is a day-to-day situation. We'll just keep seeing it as that. Brother, you are being held hostage." That is what that sounds like, Zach Taylor. You are being held hostage by your franchise wide receiver. And if your cheap ownership doesn't get something done, you're not going to have Jamar Chase in week 1.
Also, according to Ari Mirov, after GM John Lynch for the 49ers said they expected Ayuk to be at practice today, he's not there to start a practice per local media. So another big-time receiver not at practice when they said they'd be at practice.
Look,
or the coaches said, or personnel.
I've said this before. I don't want to overstate how much a holdout like this can impact a team, because you know who had a holdout, a real prominent holdout last year, and a player missed week 1 of the season last year? The
Chris
Chiefs.
Jones.
The Chiefs. And how much did that affect them? Not a whole lot, considering they were holding the Lombardi at the end of the year. So I don't want to overstate what the Ayuk drama means and the Trent Williams drama, which is even less resolved or even less close to being resolved, it seems like, than everything going on with Ayuk for the 49ers, and the Jamar Chase drama with the Bengals. I don't want to overstate how much impact that's going to have on those teams reaching their goals. But it sure feels like it's going to have some. Like, you would rather go into the regular season with the knowledge of who's going to be with you for 17 games than not. And with your guys paid, with your guys happy, and with nobody in the locker room grumbling, why won't we give our elite players the money they deserve? Because that's the biggest thing. Look, do you think there's resentment about guys getting paid in the NFL? I want to assure you that is not the case. Guys celebrate when other guys get the bag, because there's an understanding in the NFL, in that brotherhood, that the bag is not guaranteed, that no matter how talented you are, no matter how great a player you might be, you are one hit, you are one awkward landing, you are one awkward step away from the end of your career and not getting the generational wealth that a big contract can provide for a player and for that player's family. So guys are rooting for guys to get paid. There's nobody pocket watching in that 49er locker room. They want Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams on the field and paid and happy so they can go win a Lombardi, which they missed by inches last season. The Bengals have just missed a Lombardi in recent memory as well. They want their best wide receiver on the field now that they got their quarterback healthy. And I am certain that if there is grumbling in the locker room right now, it's got nothing to do with Jamar Chase in Cincinnati, everything to do with the front office. And it's got nothing to do with Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams in the 49er locker room, and everything to do with why hasn't John Lynch gotten this done? So it's not a great place for those franchises to be. Franchises with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations going into a season. Again, I don't want to overstate the impact. They could get those guys paid, get them in for week 1 or week 2 or whenever, and those guys could play a big role in those teams making deep postseason runs and maybe even winning a championship. Would you be surprised if either the Bengals or the 49ers won the Lombardi this year?
Nope.
I certainly would not. But it's also decidedly at this stage, with a week and change before the start of the season, it is decidedly not what you want. And the 49ers I would trust because they've been a good front office for years. But the Bengals, they're cheap, man. Legendarily cheap. And now they got a wide receiver who has felt good enough about things to show up for practice for a day. And their coach felt good enough about it to speak on it positively. And now they got to walk it all back today. That's a mess. And that doesn't bode well. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. When we come back, Sheil Kapadia of The Ringer last week ranked the offenses in the NFL, had the Chiefs 7th. Or does he have the Chiefs defense in his rankings? We'll talk about it next here on 580 WIBW. 534 and 580 Sports Talk. Hey, we got Pitbull into the show after all. Man, it would have been a lot of Pitbull if the Royals had gotten on that plane out of Cleveland in first place. It might have been just Pitbull all show.
Every single rejoin.
9 outs away. Hopefully, I mean, they all feel important in a pennant race. And so every loss is amplified. Every win is amplified. And the losses hurt as much as the wins feel good. But boy, put a pin in today for sure, but also put a pin in the series at large.
Yeah.
The fact that the Royals were able to take 3 out of 4 from the Guardians
and if they
today's loss.
Do indeed tie at the end of the year, well, they get the tiebreaker.
Yeah, that's right. That is huge because they don't have it with Boston, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
They don't have it with Minnesota. We'll get to more Royals in just a bit, but I don't remember who tweeted it. I think it was retweeted onto my timeline, but it was a meme where you have the 3 hands in the middle that are rock, paper, scissors. You got the fist, you got the flat hand, and you've got the 2 fingers for scissors. And all 3 of them had a different AL Central team on them because the Guardians beat up the Twins, and the Twins beat up the Royals, and the Royals beat up the Guardians.
Yeah.
So it is. The top of the division is like rock, paper, scissors. Scissors, cuts paper, but loses to rock. And that's kind of how the Central Division is shaken out. We'll get to some more Royals and why I'm optimistic about the bullpen moving forward. I know Lucas Erceg gave up his first run as a Royal today. If you thought he was going to have a 0 ERA, I don't know what to tell you. I'm actually optimistic about the Royals bullpen moving forward. I'm going to talk about it in just a little bit. But first, wanted to get to this because we talked about his offense rankings last week. But Sheil Kapati of The Ringer ranked the defenses in the National Football League, 1 all the way down to 32. And before we start, not a great spot for your Manders, Spencer, 29th.
Yeah. Well, they aren't last.
Hey, you know what? You'll take that. Exactly.
I think they were last year.
They might have been.
At the end of the year. So it's the little thing.
Baby steps. So Sheil Kapati's top-ranked defense in the NFL is the New York Jets. Now, if I asked you, Spencer, who has the best defense in the NFL, would you think the Jets as number 1? I think I would.
I don't know.
And the reason that I would, I think they've got 2 outstanding cornerbacks in Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, the former K-Stater. They're outstanding at linebacker. They've got a game wrecker up front in Quinnen Williams. I don't love the fact that Hassan Reddick doesn't look like he wants to play for them right now, and he's holding out, and that whole scenario feels very up in the air. And again, I'm not super bullish on what I think the Jets can accomplish this year, but I think Shields got the top 2 at least absolutely correct. I think the Jets and the Browns are the 2 best defensive teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know. My whole hold up on the whole Jets team is how good is their offense going to be, because no matter what happens,
we're just talking about the defense.
Yeah, just in my head, I look at it. No matter how good a defense is, depends on how good the actual team is going to be at the end of the year. Also depends on the offense. So
certainly,
but I would agree with that. And it's also crazy to think that as we go through the list, that 3 teams in the top 10 are in the same division.
Yeah, that's true. And it's not surprising which division.
No.
We'll go down the list. The Baltimore Ravens are 3rd. That's a little steep for me because they're changing scheme. Essentially, they're going to be a little different without Mike McDonald calling the shots there. They got a lot of the same players. Kyle Hamilton is unbelievable. They kept Justin Madubuike, which I thought was a big deal. They're good at all 3 levels, but I still think 3rd best is a little high with a first-time defensive coordinator calling the shots. The Cowboys are 4th. They've got a new defensive coordinator too, but it's Mike Zimmer, and we've seen his movies. We know he can coach up a defense, and they've got tremendous high-end talent. Like, there's no reason that Dallas shouldn't have a top 5 defense, though an injury to Deron Bland during camp going to mean that Mr. Pick 6 is going to sit for the first few weeks.
And that's where them not bringing back Stephon Gilmore probably hurt them.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess they've been team austerity this offseason.
Yeah,
not opening up the pocketbook, but
he was a glaring guy that was sitting there for them in their lap to come back, and then I believe he signs with the Vikings.
Yes, he signed with the Vikings, who were desperate for a cornerback.
Yeah.
They didn't have anybody in that room. But yeah, that's a big loss for Dallas, no question. They're not not as deep at corner as they were. The Seahawks are 5th. From your lips, Sheil Kapadia,
Well,
to God's ears.
They did get one of the best defensive defensive coordinators to be their head coach.
They did. It usually takes some time for defenses to adjust to what Mike McDonald wants them to do, and they are pretty young, but they do have a ceiling. And I like seeing my beloved Seattle Seahawks recognized. I don't think they're a top 5 defense. I think that's a little optimistic. I think they're pretty unproven at pass rush with their pass rushers. Uchenna Nwosu is going to miss some games. That's a bummer. Don't think they're as good at safety as they've been. They don't have Quandre Diggs anymore. I don't think that's a top 5 defense. I think it's a little high for the Seahawks, but I love the optimism from Sheil. The Steelers are 6th. You just assume they're going to have a top 5 defense every year. I think that's fine. The Texans are 7th. The Bears are 8th. That's fascinating. That's the foundation, really, that and my belief in Caleb Williams for the Bears are going to make the playoffs take, which I'm prepared, I think, to fully unveil here in about a week when we do our NFL predictions. But that defense played really, really well down the stretch, even with a stinky offense. And if they're not stinky on offense this year, they got some upside. 49ers are 9th. The Lions are 10th. And at 11th, the Kansas City Chiefs. This is what Sheil writes. This is another group that falls under the will likely take a step back but still be really good umbrella. Last season, the Chiefs produced what was easily the best defense of the Patrick Mahomes era. Shout out to YouTube commenter Tyler, who always used to comment with that. And if he's listening, might comment again. Best defense Mahomes has ever had. That's what it was last year, no doubt. They have a game record in Chris Jones, very good linebackers, young options at corner, and one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL in Steve Spagnuolo. Having said that, there are a few things that concern me. One, the Chiefs traded away L'Jarius Sneed. They have options at corner, but Sneed's play last season will be nearly impossible to replace. 2, the Chiefs were lucky in a couple of areas last season. They had the 4th best injury luck of any defense and faced the 5th fewest snaps against opponents' primary starting quarterbacks. Still see the ingredients for a very good defense. It just might not look quite as good as it did last year. If you have a concern about the Chiefs defense this year, Spencer, what would it be? What is your biggest concern?
Depth in the defensive line room, which might have been solved getting Cam Thomas.
That's a good answer.
But like, I don't know what he does on the field in KC, right? Like, we talked about it last week about the depth of the defensive line, and they did what we wanted them to do, is go out and get somebody via trade.
Yeah, but is Cam Thomas a needle mover?
No.
And you're probably not going to find a needle mover at this stage anyway. But I mean, it's a depth move, but
I would just say depth overall on defense is a big question to me, because I don't know what they have at corner depth.
They certainly cannot survive.
It's unproven.
You certainly don't feel as good that they can survive a rash of injuries. And you can probably say that about any defense. But, like, if Chris Jones has to miss time, what does that do to the pass rush? Like, scary hours. If George Karlaftis has to miss some time, what does that do to, because you're already missing Charles Omenihu, what does that do to your edge depth? Now all of a sudden you're counting on some really unproven guys.
Yeah.
If, like last year, they were really deep at linebacker, so when Nick Bolton got hurt, Drew Tranquil stepped in. This year, if there's an injury at linebacker, Bolton and Tranquil are 1-2 on the depth chart, so now you're leaning a lot heavier on Leo Chanel and Jack Cochran, and I don't love that. Nobody won the cornerback 2 job outright. I don't love that either. So
especially because those guys had injury, like Najee Johnson lingering injury.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like depth is a concern, but 2 reasons to believe that the Chiefs can overcome it. Number 1, the guys in front of all the depth guys we're talking about are really freaking good.
Yes.
High-end talent will always account for special plays and a great performance on defense. And the Chiefs have high-end guys in Jones and Karlaftis, who I believe is a high-end guy, double-digit sack guy, and Trent McDuffie, who was an all-pro last year. They've got high-end guys. The second thing, this is what was on the T-shirts last year during the playoffs, guys, and Spags we trust, right?
Yeah.
Like, Steve Spagnuolo has always been able to coach his groups up. And now the baseline he's starting from, even without L'Jarius Sneed, the baseline you're starting from this year is not a like middle of the pack NFL defense. It's a borderline top 10 defense. If the trends hold, he should be able to get this group to a comfortably top 10 defense, maybe even a top 5 group by the end of the year. So my faith is in Spags. And I think on that defensive side of the ball, their faith is in Spags too. So I think 11 is a little low for the Chiefs. I would still have them in my top 10. I would rank them ahead of Detroit. I would, frankly, probably rank them ahead of Seattle. I think that's a reach from Shield Kapadia to put the Seahawks 5th. Again, your lips to God's ears, but that's a reach for me. Real quick, the other teams from the division, the Raiders 15th. They're going to be really good up front with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, and they're going to be really stinky on the back end. But you know what alleviates the stinky back end? Great pass rush, and they might have a great pass rush. So yeah, I think that's the top half of the league defense in Vegas. The other defenses in the division, you got to scroll way down to find the Chargers are 25th and the Broncos are 26th. So not much hope, I don't think, for either of those groups. And honestly, I think that's too high for the Broncos. They got no playmakers. Yeah. They don't have Patrick Surtain the second, and that's it. They got no playmakers outside of him. We'll take a break, come back. Some final Royals thoughts on this day when we return here from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. 547 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Spencer bringing you home today. Brendan out at the Washburn Football Coaches Show. Top of the hour, 6 o'clock, over on our sister station, Classic Country 106.9. If you're in Topeka, head on out to Skinny's Sports Bar and Grill, where every day is game day, and check out that Washburn Football Coaches Show tonight as Brendan and the head coach of the Ichabods, Craig Schurig, get ready to preview the season opener for the Ichabods tomorrow night. That will be on our sister station as well when they take on the Emporia State Hornets. Real quick, thank you to Top City Metal Supply for sponsoring our text line, 785-272-9429, the Top City Metal Supply text line. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply will cut exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel, tailored to your project specifications. Start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. Royals lost today, and it was a disappointing loss, disappointing the way that it unfolded. You'd almost rather your starting pitcher get donged around and lose 8-1 than lose a game in the fashion the Royals lost it. They were up 5-2 going into the 7th inning, tried to squeeze one more inning out of Michael Wacha, which, again, defensible at the time, but also you should have felt like you had more of your bullpen available to you and not tried to get 3 more outs from Wacha. I don't understand why they wanted to stay off of Chris Bubich. That's what Ann Rogers of MLB.com says. is that they were trying to avoid using Chris Bubic today. Why? He didn't pitch yesterday. Would have been twice in 3 days or 3 times in 4 days. I know he's coming off of Tommy John, but look, man, if you can't use him like a regular reliever, why is he in the major leagues?
Why is he taking up a roster spot?
Yeah, you have to be able to use your guys 3 straight days or 3 times in 4 days. And unfortunately, that was not the decision Macaturo made. He went to Lucas Erceg, which was the right move in the circumstance. And Erceg had his first bad outing as a Royal and allowed 3 runs, 2 of them inherited, 1 of them his own to score. Nothing hit hard off of Erceg, but bloopers and bleeders, when they find outfield grass, they count the same. And the game ended up being a 7-5 Royals loss. But unfortunately, the bullpen is a negative story today, which is really too bad because the last 3 games, the ones the Royals won in Cleveland, it was a really positive story. They got 50 of the 81 outs over the course of the 3 wins, 5 perfect innings from 5 different relievers or 4 different relievers after the rain delay last night. And I tweeted something about that last night, that the bullpen, which has been maligned and fairly so for the better part of this season, needed to get a lot of outs, needed to cover 16 2/3 innings over a 2-day stretch. That's a lot of work for a bullpen and probably made it more so in Macatro's mind, feeling like he had to avoid using guys for a 3rd straight day, especially with 7 more days of games without an off day on the schedule before your next off day. But they had pitched great. And I mentioned as much on Twitter last night. Royals Review retweeted it, and then a bunch of Royals fans got hold of the tweet. So tweet was doing numbers last night. Sung Woo was in my mentions last night. That name means something to you if you're a Royals fan back from the mid-2010s. I saw Sung Woo in the mentions. Korea's #1 Royals fan. Anyway, one of the folks who was in my mention, a Twitter user by the name of Hush Pook, and I don't know this person.
What a name.
Hush Pook was the Twitter handle. And they pointed out, I don't believe I know the gender of Mr. or Mrs. Hush Pook. But Hush Pook made this point. The best Royals bullpen has never been together for a single game. When you think about who the 6 best guys that the Royals have on their roster, those are Lucas Erceg, Hunter Harvey, Chris Bubic, Sam Long, John Schreiber, and James MacArthur. Those are your 6 best guys. And they have not been on the same 26-man active roster yet.
Yeah.
Because when Harvey was acquired, Schreiber was hurt. And when Schreiber came off the IL, Harvey was hurt. So we haven't seen those 6 guys on the roster at once. And I know that John Schreiber and James MacArthur haven't fully been in favor throughout the season. But Schreiber's been terrific since he came off the injured list. And in James MacArthur's last 9 outings, he's gone 9 2/3 innings and not allowed a run. And most importantly, for a pitcher who has struggled to miss bats this year, he struck out 13 and walked just 1. If you watched last night, that was the best curveball I've seen James MacArthur throw all season. He looks like he has tweaked something and gotten his shape back on his breaking ball. And he's getting swings and misses now when he was not getting those swings and misses through the better part of the summer.
Yeah, I've really turned to the positive about James MacArthur. I think I mentioned this on the show yesterday. I had been very anti James MacArthur from May until June.
And trust me, you were not alone.
Yeah.
But no, he has pitched much better of late. And here's the thing. This version of MacArthur isn't being asked to protect 1-run leads in the 9th inning. He's a middle inning guy. John Schreiber is now kind of a middle inning guy when you have the bullpen fully healthy. So I don't know that we've come all the way around to the Royals bullpen being a strength, but I know right now it sure doesn't feel like a crippling weakness. And a month ago it did. A month ago it felt like, man, the Royals might finish out of the money, out of the postseason, and it will be because of the bullpen. Right now, though, when Hunter Harvey gets back healthy, and they've got all 6 of those guys lined up together to close out close games, I think that's very workable for the Royals to accomplish not just their goal of making the postseason, but I think those 6 guys, Erceg, Harvey, Bubic, Long, Schreiber, MacArthur, that is a group that is good enough to make a real run at the American League Central. And I still feel that way, even though Urseg's ERA is no longer perfect after today. We'll take one final break, come back with a final word after this on 580 Sports Talk. Final word time on 580 Sports Talk. Spencer.
Yes, I got two things. One, I just saw on Twitter, the Nationals are so back. Dylan Cruz, the number 2 pick last year, just went deep in his first ever leadoff opportunity. The Nationals are back, can play a World Series contenders next year.
Okay.
I'm calling it.
All right.
Also, football Chiefs wise here. I always wondered what the intrigue, how the intrigue was for Luis Reese-Zammit, and it just never came to fruition here in Kansas City. And maybe it will come true in Jacksonville. Who knows? Or he'll go back to playing rugby. But it was a fun experiment.
Not a fast enough learner to stick on a championship roster at the end of the day, I think is what we can say about Luis Reese-Zammit. Final word for me is very simple. The Royals just did the business in Cleveland, taking 3 out of 4 from the division leaders. They're in a fight in the Central. Today's loss stings, but you got a chance to shake it off with Houston on the schedule tomorrow. We'll be back with you tomorrow from 3 until 6. For Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. This is 580 Sports Talk.